Assalamu alaikum YouTube, Ramadan Mubarak to all of you, even though it's already been going on for like 2 weeks at this point, and that is one of the reasons why this video is quite late, because I had wanted to make this video at least a week ago at this point, but life happened and I thought I would just sit on it a little while more and get my thoughts together. And today, finally, I have gotten all my thoughts together and we're gonna talk about why I am desperately hoping that Blizzard does not give us a cliched story for Diablo 4. Now, we all know that Diablo 4's open beta happened a couple of weeks ago, and after going through the entire game meticulously, mostly with my rogue, I tried all of the other classes, but rogue, she is my main character going forward in Diablo 4, not only because I had a lot of fun playing her, but because she is the only returning character from Diablo 1 specifically, which I am very excited about, and Diablo 1 is kind of like a big part of why I am making this video at this point. You can argue that the sorcerer class has always been present in the Diablo series. It was also in Diablo 1, 2, 3, and now it's in Diablo 4, but rogue is kind of like a special case for me personally. Now, after going through the entire game and all of the content that we actually got in the open beta regarding the lore and the story of Diablo 4, I am happy to say that I am cautiously optimistic about this story and where the direction of the Diablo series is being taken by Blizzard. I have never made it a secret that Diablo 1 is probably not only my favorite part of the entire series of Diablo at this point, but it is possibly my second favorite game of all time. Number one spot belongs to King's Quest VI because that game has a special place in my heart. But Diablo 1, I have to say, I absolutely love that game. It is one of those games that have inspired me the most when it comes to creativity and making my artwork and stuff like that. That's not important, just giving you a little context. Now, when you look at Diablo 1, you might say that maybe it's nostalgia speaking that you're saying that it's your favorite game, and even though I admit Diablo 1 on the core game, its gameplay is not up to par with the modern standards of gaming of what we have come to love and appreciate. I have to say the main reason why I love Diablo 1 so much is mainly because of its story and the excellent setting that it created when they came up with the town of Tristram and stuff like that. I do actually recommend playing Diablo 1 again if you have never played it, but do consider playing it with the Beelzebub mod, because that mod is a lifesaver for the entire Diablo 1 experience. Like I mentioned, Diablo 1 as an experience in today's age of gaming, yeah, many people might find it tedious. The hardcore people like me, we love it still. I'm pretty sure the very slow and meticulous way of how Diablo 1 actually works. But play the Beelzebub mod, it has a lot of quality of life changes and it adds all of the cut content, and it's an overall very good experience if you want to experience the granddaddy of all ARPGs. Now, speaking of the story of Diablo 1, quickly I just want to mention how amazing and how kind of like a lightning in a bottle kind of scenario happened with Blizzard North when they came up with Diablo. The story is very simple, but it is highly engaging, at least for me. You have this town, which may be a small town set in a rural part of Europe for all we know when Diablo 1 came out, and you have only these 7 NPC characters that have a lot of depth between them, and then you have this amazing scenario of there being a very demonic presence beneath this church of this town. And that was the entire story of Diablo. Obviously it goes on and elaborates on all of the things, but in short, Diablo's entire story is basically you arrive at a town, there's something going wrong, and you're going down there and it opens up. Now, I love Diablo 2, but to me personally, when it comes to the lore of Diablo series, Diablo 2 is kind of like the first culprit, because they took that entire setting of Diablo and took it into a completely different direction of this fantasy almost universe, akin to the World of Warcraft kind of thing, where you have these we got to see a lot of new lands and a lot of new history and all of that. Obviously they expanded a lot of the Diablo lore when it came to Diablo 2, but to me personally, the charm and the horror aspect of Diablo as a series was lost when they converted that very real setting of Tristram into this fantastical world of Sanctuary that we know nowadays. Then we have Diablo 3, the black sheep of the entire series, and I have to say I in particular hate the story of Diablo 3. It is the worst part of the entire game for me personally, and it has a lot of stupid things like Tyrael actually becoming a human when he takes off his wings. Like, by logic of Sanctuary itself, shouldn't he just disappear if he takes off his wings? Why is he becoming a human even though humans came after the demons and angels made it together? Yeah, that's besides the point. I'm just saying Diablo 3 really fucked up the entire lore of this series. Now we come to Diablo 4. And from what I have seen, like I mentioned at the start of this video, I am very cautiously optimistic about this game because what we have seen so far of the story, it is very interesting, and I just want to go through some quick things that I have noticed, and maybe we can like piece together what we might actually be seeing. And that is the main purpose of why I'm making this video, because we can actually piece together what the story might actually turn out to be, and I'm really hoping that that is not the case, because they have a potential of not telling a very cliched story at this point. Factions. Now first of all, I want to talk about the factions that we have seen so far in Diablo 4. At one point we have Inarius and the Cathedral of Light. These guys have been around ever since the Diablo 1 days. Obviously they were never like explicitly stated as like the Cathedral of Light, but if you look at Diablo 1, the Pepin the Healer and Cain the town elder, they mention the light numerous times. So yeah, it's a good thing they have implemented that entire concept of Cathedral of Light into Diablo 4. At one point we have Inarius and the Cathedral of Light. In their opposition is obviously Lilith and the Triune. Now for those of you who don't know what the Triune is, thousands of years ago, back in the early days of Sanctuary, a very powerful religion came up, and on the front it was like a very like benevolent religion that worshipped the high heavens, but in secret it was actually a cult that was getting people inside them, and they were basically worshipping the three prime evils in secrecy. They got exposed, they fought it out, they died, and they went underground, and that's the end of their history up until now, when we have finally gotten confirmation that the guy who actually summons Lilith in the start of the opening cinematic of Diablo 4, he is a member of the Triune. Now Lilith obviously is being considered the big bad of this entire game, and that is one of the first points that I want to make, that I really hope that is not the case. Even though it has been confirmed that Lilith is going to be the biggest antagonist of Diablo 4, at least on launch, I think they have a very good opportunity to not make this a very cliched story where Inarius and the Cathedral of Light are actually the good guys and Lilith and demons are the bad guys. If you want to go all out, I would say that follow your own history and lore and give us something refreshing for once. Now when I say cliched, there are some things that I am seeing right now that we have seen done 1,000 times already, and we can like obviously tell what is going on. When you play through the open beta of Diablo 4, you can actually see that even though the Cathedral of Light and Inarius are supposed to be the good guys, they are doing some very messed up things, especially to NPCs and their motivations and the stuff like that. So obviously they are giving off this ruthless aggression, righteousness kind of feeling that doesn't sit well with all of the other people around. Even Loreth Nahar is not very, fond of the Cathedral of Light at this moment, and I am like thinking the purpose they are going for is something like, yeah, these are supposed to be the good guys, but by the end of the game we're gonna find out that yeah, these are secret assholes. And in the opposition you have Lilith and the Triune. Now these are obviously the bad guys because the presence of Lilith in the world of Sanctuary is really tipping the scales in the favor of the Burning Hells, and the demonic presence on the world is increasing. But if you know the extended lore like I do, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of other people do, Lilith is not technically the bad guy in the entire story of Diablo when it comes to the history and lore of this world. A quick reminder I just want to give to people that back when Lilith and Inarius first created Sanctuary, and through their love they gave birth to the first humans, and when those first humans actually started exhibiting very great power enough to challenge not only the high heavens but the burning hells combined, Inarius decided that humanity had become a like third faction in this eternal conflict, and they were like very capable of tipping the scales and destroying the heavens and the hells at the same time. So he decided to basically kill off the entire human population, his own children. And only it was Lilith's intervention that actually saved the human race, and it exists now in Sanctuary. So Lilith may be the biggest bad guy of Diablo 4, but right now, if you consider everything, she is technically the only reason why humanity actually exists in the universe of Diablo. And there is a reason why everybody is calling her mother, because she technically is the progenitor of the entire human race, with her being the mother and Inarius being the father. Now the third faction after Inarius' Cathedral of Light and Lilith's Triune, we have the ever so present the Horadrim. Now the Horadrim, we all know that they were a secret group of a secret group of mages and priests long ago when Tyrael first created the Horadrim. They were a group whose main purpose was to hunt the primevals that had been banished from Hells into the world of Sanctuary, and who were like causing havoc across the entire world. They hunted the 3 primevals, bound them into soul stones, and that's the end of their story, because eventually after their mission was done, they didn't really have a purpose and they just died out with the years, and until only a few of them remained, the most famous being Deckard Cain from Diablo 1, Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. Now, at the end of Diablo 3, Reaper of Souls, we actually find out that Tyrael has remade the Order of the Horadrim with an entire new, people. The Order has been re-established, and they are working together to stop the influence of heaven and hell from seeping into the world of Sanctuary and protecting the human race. That was in Diablo 3's ending, that the Horadrim have been re-established. Fast forward Diablo 4, apparently 30 years have passed and the Horadrim are basically facing their second downfall at this point. Again, there are only a few of them left. Lorath Nahar is actually a character from Diablo 3, Reaper of Souls, and he is an old man now, and somewhere I read that somebody says that Horadrim are nothing more than like a rambling madman at this point. So obviously they are experiencing their second downfall at this moment, even though they are still playing a very significant role in the events of Sanctuary at this point, but I have no idea where they are going to actually go with the Horadrim now that they are at their lowest point once again, and only in 30 years. That is saying something. Now the fourth faction I want to mention here, and this is the most interesting part to me because I have no idea what this particular faction or maybe this particular one character is. There are going to be some major spoilers right now, so if you don't want to get spoiled, do consider clicking off. But before you do, please like the video, give it a thumbs up if you like it, and also subscribe to the channel. It really helps getting myself into the algorithm and stuff like that. Ready? 3, 2, 1. We have a fourth faction in Diablo 4 that I in particular have no idea what we are seeing right now, and that is this Dead Dog character. Now this Dead Dog is actually a character we see in the very first in-game cinematic for Diablo 4 open beta, when this creature is coming out in the snow when we are taking refuge in that cave at the start of the game. Now when the game started, I had no idea that this was actually a character. I just thought that this was one of those demon wargs that we fight in the very first area of Diablo 4, so I didn't think much of it. But at this particular point, near the end of the open beta gameplay, we go on a particular quest where we have to follow a particular girl to do something particular, and when we are following her, we actually come across a very red town portal. Now when we go through the town portal, I genuinely missed a heartbeat, because the first thing when you go through the town portal, we see visions of Tristram, and that thing really caught me off guard, and it is one of the most particular things that have extremely gotten me interested in the entire story and lore of Diablo 4 at this point. Seeing Tristram completely not only destroyed but being something part of an Hellraiser, or at least like Doom kind of like hell environment, you kind of like finally get the feeling that yes, Diablo's anger must have been intense for him to do something so horrific and bad to the town of Tristram. In Diablo 1, Tristram, I would argue that maybe Tristram is one of the most popular places that Blizzard in general has created. It is one of their most popular locations. No idea why it never made it into the Heroes of the Storm, but I think we can understand why it didn't. Tristram is the only area that has appeared in all of the games up until this point. In Diablo 1, it was the main setting, obviously. In Diablo 2, we find out that Tristram has been destroyed quite recently because the fires are still burning and Cain is still there in his cage. Then in Diablo 3, we revisit old Tristram, and it is a very ghost town at this point. I did like the aesthetic of Diablo 3 quite much when it came to Tristram. But now, I think with the destruction, Diablo 3 and Diablo 2 has a 20-year gap and 30-year gap between Diablo 3 and Diablo 4. So basically it has been like 50 to 60 years at this point that Tristram has been destroyed. Everybody who was there has been killed off or have died natural causes, maybe. To finally see Tristram being in such a sorry and horrific state is kind of finally gives me that feeling of really how pissed Diablo must have been to not only be trapped inside a soul stone beneath the cathedral of this very backwater type of town for, I don't know, hundreds or maybe thousands of years, but to actually get his ass beat and then be defeated by another person from the same town. So his anger complete, Tristram has been completely destroyed and turned into this horrifically demonic place, and I am all for it because I want to see how it actually plays out in the entire story. It is in this old ruined state of Tristram that we come across this dead dog character again, and we don't get much information from it, obviously, because I'm pretty sure the developers are saving everything else for the final release of the game. But he does mention that he is someone who likes how the world is running right now. He is an opposer of Lilith in general because he says that, yeah, I don't want Lilith to come back to the world because she's gonna mess everything up, and he likes the world as it is right now. But he does mention one thing in particular. He does say don't do what don't follow the thorugh because they have always led the entire world towards ruin, and that is another thing that is very interesting to me, and I am super excited to see where Diablo's story is going and how all of these factions are gonna be interacting with each other. Or maybe thorugh and this particular factions are gonna be enemies or something, opposing forces, stuff like that. Very interesting stuff, and I really hope that it does pay off and we don't get a very cliched story, which I am getting the feeling that we might end up getting, because at the end of the day this is Blizzard. All of the good talent from Blizzard has already left years ago at this point, but hey, these are developers, they're good people, they're hardworking people, and I'm pretty sure they won't want to really mess up something that they have put so much love and time into. But we could have said the same thing with Diablo 3, and we all know how that turned out. Diablo 3, come on man, let's stop hitting on Diablo 3 for 1 minute, okay? Diablo 3 actually has some good aspects when it comes to its story. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna make a complete video on what I find good about the story of Diablo 3. In short, I can tell you two things from the top of my head right now. I loved the Angeres Council. When we got to see the Angeres Council, the 5 prime angels of the high heavens, I loved that entire thing. The hierarchy of seeing the hierarchy of the high angels, stuff like that. Next, I know this might sound controversial to many of you, I actually loved the character of Leah. I think she was a perfect segue into bringing Diablo back into the world of Sanctuary after his soulstone was destroyed in Diablo 2. Now, what they did with Leah at the end of Diablo 3, the core base game, that was in my opinion, really messed up, okay? They needed to at least implement some kind of... They could have made a very good character out of Leah, that's what I'm trying to say. It could have been something you finally exorcise Diablo's demon out of Leah, and then she becomes this kind of a character who is existing between the planes or something like that. She is on the same time, half in the burning hells and half in this plane, and she could have been easily created as the next Deckard Cain character, and it would have made a lot of sense. It would have made a lot of sense that if you were killing off Diablo's main iconic character Deckard Cain in Diablo 3, you needed a very good replacement for it. And even though Leah was not such an in-depth character as Deckard Cain because he already had 2 games to go through, Leah could have been a very good character if she would have been handled right when it comes to Diablo 3. But they killed her off, and that was the end of their story. It is mentioned in the book of Tyrael at one point that Tyrael does think that Leah does exist in some form somewhere in the world or in some other plane, but really that's just like that's just a handoff at this point for all of us who really like the Leah character. Because if Leah can exist somewhere in this world, she was possessed by Diablo, then doesn't that mean that the warrior from Diablo 1 should also exist at some place in the world right now, because he was also possessed by Diablo? And what about Prince Albert, the first person to ever get possessed by Diablo in Diablo 1? It kind of like really messed things up, but I did like the character of Leah, and I was very sad that she didn't make a comeback in Reaper of Souls. Just imagine 30-year gap between Diablo 3 and Diablo 4, and at this point Leah could have been an old woman or at least a middle-aged woman, and she would have been acting like this Deckard Cain character, and I think it would have been really awesome. Because let's be honest, Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 has a 20-year gap between them. Okay, we can say Cain was still alive if he was considered to be in his 40s or at least in his 50s. He's like 70 years old, and he looks like 70 years old in Diablo 3's opening cinematic. There's a 30-year gap between Diablo 3 and Diablo 4. What are the chances of this old, brittle, fragile man who's been like traveling all of his life, he's sick and he's seen some horrible things in life, he has his spirit broken multiple times in life. What are the chances that he survives to 100 years old? Yeah, the very little chances. So you needed another character to replace Deckard Cain, and they did that for a very short time with Leah in Diablo 3, but that was the end of that story, and it was a very bad show all around. Now coming back to the Diablo 4 stuff, after going on the tangent with Diablo 3 and Leah, I just want to say in the end we have absolutely no idea what the proper intentions of both Inarius and Lilith are at this point, and that is one thing very interesting to me personally. All we know right now is that Inarius is going, all we know right now is that Inarius is trying to go back to the high heaven because he was banished from there thousands of years ago for not only giving birth to humanity with Lilith, but also making this world a sanctuary. So he was turned over to the burning hells because that was part of the deal of not interfering with the world of sanctuary. We don't know how Inarius escaped, but that is gonna be something very amazing when we actually get to see it. I hope that we get to see it in a very grand cinematic or something like that. But when it comes to Inarius, we kind of like understand he's trying to go back home, but we don't know what Lilith is doing. Basically, she has gotten her hands on that key. The key is supposed to open the gates of hell. We don't know why she is like opening the gates of hell. At least I am thinking, why would she want to invite the burning hells into the world of sanctuary when the burning hells and the high heavens both have tried to destroy this world multiple times at this point, and she is no fan of her father and the primevals, her uncles, in the first place. So maybe Lilith might end up turning the good guy at the end, but we still have to kill her off or something like that. We have absolutely no idea, which is why I think Diablo 4's entire story and lore is seeming very much more interesting as compared to Diablo 3. Diablo 3 had the potential of making a very grand and very good story if they tried, but they went the whole cliched route, and that's the end of that story. We are just gonna have to see what they do with Diablo 4, and I hope it is something good. Thank you for watching this video. If you made it to the end, I really appreciate you, and as a last gesture, why don't you just hit that subscribe button and that thumbs up button. It really helps, like I mentioned somewhere in the video before. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. I do plan on making some more videos about the lore of Diablo 4 at this point, at least my speculations, so be on the lookout for those. Peace out.